Well, thanks for stopping by the 33 King studio to hang with your host, Uncle Jay. Now, this is episode 2 of the Granny Witches, which we done the first episode a couple of weeks ago. Now, with the economy going like it is, the banks crashing, and the world just seems to be going to, well, in a handbasket. Well, do you think those old Granny Witches would have had any frets whatsoever? Well, of course not. They'd have grabbed their canning jars, made sure they had plenty of lids, grabbed that Bible, said a prayer, and hoped for a good harvest for the year. Now, there's one thing about it. Those folks back in Appalachia, well, they always had food. It wasn't necessarily what you wanted to eat, but, well, they guarantee you had a full belly. Now, those old Granny Witches, well, they had a cure for almost everything. Now, some of it wasn't the most enticing. Skunk grease, kerosene, turpentine, quinine, and moonshine. And some of them all rolled into the same concoction. Well, you can look at it like this. There's one thing about it. If it didn't cure you, there's a good chance it'd kill you. Anyway, we're going to take a look at some of these old recipes and some of this stuff that the mountain people used to live on, and take a look at some of these Granny Witches cures, and we'll take a look at some of the lingo for Appalachia too, and the dialect that they have. And anyway, thanks for hanging with Uncle Jay. Hit that like and that subscribe button. Let's get into the story. Now, one of the big things to consider when we consider the Granny Witches of Appalachia is their heritage and where their ancestors came from. Now, most of the people that settled in Appalachia either come from Germany, Ireland, or Scotland, or England. Now, these were some of the first settlers that come into this country that colonized the United States. Now, with that being said, a lot of these folks, they spread out. And they integrated and they come to the places that resembled their homeland. And with that, they brought a lot of their homeland superstitions, their recipes, and their ways of living. Now, most of these people, they had to be their doctors, their ministers, their keepers in every aspect and way of life. Because living in Appalachia was hard. The mountains were treacherous. And these people had to do whatever they could to survive. Now, a lot of their dialect came from their homelands. And it settled in after generation. And the way they talk still lives today. And the way they eat still lives today. Well, it's a beautiful way of life. And these Granny Witches, well, they weren't witches. They didn't ride around on brooms. No, they were the keepers of their families. They were the doctors. They were the caretakers. They were the gardeners. They were the house cleaners. They were the cooks. Well, they were everything to their family. Everything but witches. Well, for a lot of people in Appalachia, well, the good old soup bean was essential for survival. Beans, period, whether it was green beans, the soup bean, the white bean, whatever kind of bean. Well, that was a big part of the diet in Appalachia back in the 1800s because they was easy to store and they were easy to keep and they kept for a long time. Now, I have to just tell you, well, those Granny Witches came up with a great amount of recipes. And well, you can fix soup beans almost any way you want to. But I'll tell you how Uncle Jay likes them. I like them with a good old piece of hog jaw in the center of it, or well, some good old cured bacon. And a lot of people like to use ham. But now there's nothing better than a bowl of soup beans big bunch of green onions, and that would be a handful. Some taters if you got them, and that'd be for potatoes if you don't know what we're talking about here. And a good old pan of cornbread that's fixed in an iron skillet. That has to be fixed in an iron skillet. Can't have it any other way. And now here in Appalachia, well, we don't call it a pan of cornbread. Nah, them granny witches called it a pone of cornbread. Well, now, them good old pones of cornbread was a staple among the granny witches of Appalachia. Well, because flour and cornmeal was pretty easy to come by, but everything else wasn't. So you could fix a meal and have a whole bunch of cornbread. You could fill your family's belly up and make them think they had a great meal with just a little bit of cornbread. Now, a lot of times that they didn't, they used the iron skillets to fix their cornbread, but there's a lot of times they just stuck them on a hole. And that's where the good old term hoe cake come from. And then some good old Cajuns got the idea to throw some onions in there. And, well, then the hush puppy was born. Oh, Uncle Jay may have spent a little bit too much time on the cornbread, but, well, I'm hungry. And ain't nothing better than a good old bowl of soup beans and cornbread and good green onion. And, hey, a pickled beet. Don't know why. I like pickled beets with my beans. But anyway, well, let's get in on some of these granny witches and talk about some of the remedies and the cures. That's really what I want to talk about because, hey, some of them are pretty rugged. Well, these old granny witches, they had a cure for everything. A bee sting, well, you chew or mash some ragweed. You put it on the sting to deaden the pain or reduce the swelling. You can put some moist snuff or some mud or tobacco juice or some castor oil on it. Now, I remember when I was a child going through the woods and stuff, getting stung by bees and yellow jackets, and that was the first thing that I got stuck on there was a good old wadded up, already chewed big smack of tobacco on there. And guess what? It really stopped the sting. Now, if I don't know if you guys have ever been stung by what they call a pack saddle or not, but I'm showing you the picture of this little varmint right here just so you know. These things give you one of the worst things that you can possibly ever imagine. Now, they had the same remedy for it, was chewing tobacco and putting it on it or mashed ragweed, but these little varmints are bad news right here. Now, chigger bites, that's something, well, we all get if we get out in the woods and stuff, especially if we get around them old ragweeds and things, but to relieve that, they rub chewed tobacco on it too, but a lot of times they make a mixture of butter and some salt to help stop the itching, and I remember my mother putting butter and salt on mine and also some clear fingernail polish. Well, now for what they call the itch, or around here in Appalachia, what they call the each, they use sulfur and lard. Many times they'd use a mixture of gunpowder and sulfur, or wash some yellow root and put it on the infected area. Now for a sore throat, well, the remedy was baked onions in a fireplace, and then you tie them around your throat. Or you made a poultice of kerosene, turpentine, and pure lard, which kept you from blistering, and placed that on your neck. And also it says in 5 minutes you'll be able to taste the kerosene in your throat. Then you'll know the cure's begun. Now, another remedy is gargle with honey and vinegar or rub pine oil on your throat, or gargle with good old salty water. Now, one of the things that I really like on this is a cure for athlete's foot. Now, this one is you tie a string of wool around your big toe and go out and step in a big old fresh pile of cow poop. Well, you know, in many cases, I think a lot of these might have just been some of the family messing with people. Putting a piece of wool on your big toe and going stepping in a fresh pile of cow poop, well, I kind of think that's just somebody having a little fun. Also, there's a remedy that, to cure a sore throat, well, the person should wear a sock and a work boot, not change socks for a week. And then at the end of the week, put that sock around your neck. Well, I don't know. But folks, some of these good old remedies you can find in the good old Foxfire book written back in 1968. I recommend if you like old stuff like this, try and find you a copy of it. And if you like hanging with Uncle Jay, we'll hit that like and that subscribe button, and we'll see you next time.